Hello, everybody. Welcome into Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Friday, October 4th. I hope everybody had a wonderful day yesterday. Today, we are going to take a look at, of course, game picks. It is Friday. We're also going to take a look at the wild Thursday night game that took place between the NFC South Division title hopefuls, in my opinion, in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Atlanta Falcons, as well as setting the stage for the MLB Divisional round that takes place starting on Saturday after a crazy wildcard round full of upsets. But before we get into any of that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Friday, October 4th. But like I was saying, we are going to get into our show starting off with the crazy Thursday night football action that took place last night. The Falcons hosted the division rival Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield coming off of a huge win, destroying those Philadelphia Eagles. They take this game to overtime. This game was nowhere near as close as it looked on paper. When we're taking a look at this game specifically, obviously it started off a little bit slow for the Falcons. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers at half jumped out to a 24-17 lead. Defenses started to get a little bit stronger and better in that second half. And that second half specifically, my God, Kirk Cousins takes over. You have these random games where Kirk Cousins is going to do his thing. Kirk Cousins throws for a team record at a night where Matt Ryan gets enshrined into the Hall of Fame. A team record 509 yards. That's ridiculous. 509 yards. Kirk Cousins is now the only quarterback in NFL history to go for 450 yards or more with three different teams. Now, that's a little bit of a cherry-picked ESPN stat. I'm not going to lie to you about that. First of all, you have to be on three teams, but having at three of those performances at all is incredibly impressive. This is the first week that we've really been able to see Kirk Cousins get comfortable with his wide receivers. Drake London finishes with 12 catches for 150 yards and a touchdown. Kyle Pitts adds another 8 catches of his own for around 75 yards. We have a whole bunch of contribution. Obviously, Kadarius Hodge catches a walk-off touchdown in overtime there, a 60-yarder to walk off the game there for him. A huge moment for a young guy that hasn't gotten a lot of playing time, now has scored a touchdown in back-to-back weeks. And of course, Darnell Mooney, who I want to take a quick step back here before we dive a little more into this game, but Darnell Mooney has been awesome for these Falcons. He seemed like their more go-to guy, a guy that Kirk was a little more comfortable with than Drake London up until this game. And even when in this game, with Drake London having himself a phenomenal game, we saw Darnell Mooney have a really, really massive game as well. 2 touchdowns out of him. Just an elite performance from Kirk Cousins in prime time. He's been killing it in prime time. He has led now 3 game-winning drives with these Atlanta Falcons in just 4 games. That's insane. Now, of course, it's not great that he's had to lead 3 game-winning drives on this team in just 5 weeks. But still, it's encouraging as a sign that, hey, if you don't want to give Kirk Cousins the ball at the end of the game, because he's someone that's going to make you pay. Anthony, I do see your question. We're going to get to it in the next segment when we talk some baseball. But I do appreciate your question there about the Marlins manager. Getting back to the Kirk Cousins performance and this Thursday night football game, obviously Atlanta gets out on wins in overtime 36-30. They had to come down, and it was an interesting play call to get down to that game-winning field goal in overtime, to get it to overtime. Game-tying field goal, I should say, by Young Hoku, who has been one of the better kickers in the NFL this year. Kickers as a whole in the NFL have been really, really awesome. Has a kick block earlier in the game, sets a career high last week on a game-winning field goal. Today is called out after a slant where Drake London doesn't go down right away, picks up a couple more yards running. I don't know if that's to get a spot, but it's a dangerous play call with no timeouts and the clock ticking under 10 seconds. The Falcons did an incredible job. I thought there was no shot after Drake London took a couple more yards that they were going to be able to get up to the line and spike it, but all credit to the Falcons there, leading an incredible 1-minute drive down there to get into Young Hoku range. It's really cool to see. This is the kind of Falcons team that we were expecting, that kind of Falcons offense that we were expecting getting earlier when we were predicting them early in the season with the addition of Kirk Cousins. Obviously, we get the emergence of all of these great weapons on the outside. Bijan Robinson, well, he wasn't a focal point of that game. Hard to be a focal point of that game when Kirk Cousins throws the ball 50-some times. But still, his ability to make a huge impact, an impact on itself. He rushes for over 60 yards, active in the pass game, pass block, it works, right? He's doing his job out there, and he's finding a way to still be in this offense without putting up those massive, massive numbers. I was incredibly impressed by Kirk Cousins. I did not expect that out of him. On the other side of the ball, obviously, some turnover issues. It didn't end up being the big issue with the Buccaneers. Bucky Irving fumble sets up a moment where the Falcons have a chance to come down. Kirk Cousins throws an interception, so it ends up not really mattering. But their inability to close out the game there, that's kind of been an issue with a lot of teams. Their defense inability to get pressure on Kirk Cousins when he drops back 55 times in a game. They need to be able to get that pressure. They need to be able to generate it. Also, on the secondary, it doesn't matter. If your defense isn't getting pressure, you shouldn't be giving up 600 yards through the air. You should be able to make these tackles. A lot of these were off yak, catch and run. There were a couple of deep shots there, but a lot of the yards came from catch and run and missed tackle opportunities. The Buccaneers defense goes through these phases where 1 week they're awesome. Last week against the Eagles, they were awesome, getting pressure, getting to the quarterback, making Jalen Hurts fumble, strip sack, interception. They were great. The week before that against the Broncos, were not good at all. And you could chalk that up to a lot of different reasons, but they were not good again against the Falcons. And you can say, hey, Kirk Cousins was awesome. He was. 500 yards isn't just going to be due to the fact that the defense played bad. But 500 yards also isn't going to be due to the fact only that you played good. It's a two-sided coin here, and there has to be a lot of blame put on that Buccaneers defense. Todd Bowles, a very good defensive coach. Most of the time his defenses are at least average. He doesn't have these elite pieces to go with him this year. A couple of guys stepping up. McCullum on the outside made a couple of big plays. He's been a project guy. He's almost breaks up the pass, almost intercepts the pass that ends up going for the touchdown in overtime. It's a good play by him. It's just a better throw. So there's some good and there is some bad here. Overall, I think this is going to be a matchup where the division is going to come down to it. As much as I think, the Saints have a chance in this one, there is going to be a huge matchup between the Buccaneers and the Falcons later on in this season, week 8. And I know that might sound like too soon to be a huge matchup, but if the Falcons sweep the Buccaneers in this one, I think the Bucs are basically out of the division race. Now, it is anybody's race in that division. The NFC South is a crapshoot. If you've ever seen a crapshoot, anyone can win that aside from maybe the Panthers. I don't know, maybe the way they're playing, they can find a way in there. But this was a huge Thursday night matchup and a huge performance from Kirk Cousins. Franchise record for the Atlanta Falcons, 509 yards. That's not something you can just do on any normal day. So congratulations to Kirk Cousins and the Falcons. They killed it in that one. Huge game for them. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we're going to take a look at the world of baseball before we get into our game picks for the weekend. We're going to take a look at the MLB Divisional round, maybe review the Mets game a little bit, a crazy ending in that one. So stick around for that. We'll be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Friday, October 4th. If you are just tuning in, we just went over the wild game that Kirk Cousins and the Falcons had, a comeback victory to win in overtime 36-30 on one of the greatest Thursday night footballs of recent memory. In this segment, we're going to turn our attention to baseball. The MLB divisional round is set after a near walk-off, as close as you can to a walk-off win by the New York Mets on the road, eliminating the division champions, Milwaukee Brewers. Crazy moment. We're going to talk about that and more in just a second. But before we do that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use the super chat feature. If you do either one of those things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. For instance, Anthony asks if we have any information on who the favorites are for the new Marlins manager after they part ways with Skip Schumacher. There's a couple of different options. I haven't heard anything specifically for you, Anthony, but a group that I would target, there's a bunch of, you could go get former managers. I think the Marlins, for what they need a manager that it's going to be a little bit younger. We're not looking at a guy like, the Reds hired. I don't think a Terry Francona type is going to be the kind of guy that they want. Maybe they want one of these up-and-coming names. Fangraphs gives out a bunch of options. Will Venable, assistant manager for the Rangers, Johnny Washington, the Angels hitting coach, guys like that. I haven't seen anything officially yet, but those are the kind of guys that if I were the Marlins, I would focus on. Not one of those former managers. I want someone younger that can vibe with a new clubhouse, get them together, grow strong with a pseudo rebuild. Someone young that can grow with the rebuild as well. I think that's what they need more than anything. But there's a lot of different options. You could go get one of those former managers out there. Not something I would say, but just my opinion. But like I was saying, we're going to get into the MLB playoffs. Marlins, obviously, not in the playoffs. Like 7077 memorabilia said, they should maybe relegation there. But the playoffs are here. One more comment on this. Anthony says, how about the top two managers in college baseball? guy from Vanderbilt, and Kevin O'Sullivan from Florida. If you can lure one of those guys out, I like it. It's just tough because they don't have that MLB experience. It kind of fits the mold of what I was saying, but a lot of times when you're hiring a manager, it comes either from a former MLB manager or someone that is currently in MLB clubhouse, either as an assistant manager or as a base coach. From what I've seen, I like the idea of getting a guy from college, but I don't expect them to do that. I think that would be a good idea, though. But getting to the playoffs here, obviously a wild card round, one of the craziest ones that we have seen thus far. For the first 4 wild card rounds, 3 of them ended in upsets, with the Royals, the Tigers, and the Mets all taking down their division-winning opponents, or all taking down their home-bound opponents. The Tigers taking down the Astros. Mets, obviously, in a very, very memorable sports moment, a legendary moment from lifetime Met Pete Alonso, a dinger in the top of the 9th, 3-run home run to take the lead in a night where they have been completely shut down. The Mets had taking that momentum. That is a huge win for these Mets as their magical season continues. The Tigers, don't let them get hot. They got hot at the right time. They've been the hottest team in baseball. And of course, the Royals upsetting the Orioles in a pitching duel series. I love me a good pitcher's duel. Some people don't. I respect it. I love how the Royals team is built here, but it sets up a lot of really interesting matchups in the divisional round. Starting off in the AL here, we have 3 of our 4 matchups being divisional matchups. So we're going to start off with the one that isn't a divisional matchup so we can break down some of these opponents that have played 13 times against each other this season already. The Royals take on the Yankees. The Royals, like I said, have that pitching staff. They have a great top 3 there. Maybe one of the best top 3, rivaled probably only by the Phillies right now as far as starting pitching strength goes. I'm always going to be a little bit biased as with starting pitching. It's crazy what starting pitching can do for you in the playoffs. Obviously, we saw that in full effect with Tariq Skubal, with a lot of these starting pitchers in the Mets series, with a lot of the starting pitchers in the Royals series as well, on both sides there. They keep their teams in the game even when the offense isn't working, and that's going to be the key for the Royals. Obviously, the Yankees are a weirdly built team. They're a team that basically has 2 hitters, but those 2 hitters, arguably the 2 best hitters on the planet. You got to throw Shohei in there. But they're 2 of the 3 best hitters on the planet right now, and they're on the same team, back-to-back. They don't have much outside of that, but if the pitching can survive against a Royals offense that has been really, really rough in this last month of baseball, they have a shot to beat them pretty easily. Now, again, that Royals pitching staff, incredible. I really do love the way that this Royals pitching staff is built. I think they're a team that can put the Yankees on the ropes. But those 2 guys in the lineup, it combines for about 5 people, all in all, with how good they are back-to-back. And I think the Royals' offense is going to be their downfall here. As good as Bobby Witt is, as fun as this series is going to be, I just don't think the Royals have the offensive juice to compete with the Yankees, especially when the Yankees have that home field advantage. I know Kansas City can get wild in the playoffs, and they haven't been here since they won the World Series almost 10 years ago. Lost 100 games last year. But still, I think the Yankees are going to find a way to win this one. I think they take it in 4 games. I do think the Royals put up a fight in all of them because that pitching staff, again, is excellent. But I think the Yankees are just going to be a little too much for the Royals to handle. Yankees in 4. Now to the Tigers. I see you guys talking about the Tigers here. The Tigers, you're right, are a problem. They have been the hottest team in baseball. On August 11th, they had a 0.2% chance to make the playoffs, and now they've swept the dynasty Astros. Right? The Astros are a team that prior to this season had made it to 7 straight ALCSs. If experience is a thing, which as 1777 memorabilia points out, the Royals don't have that, it does make a difference sometimes. The Tigers have just taken out the team with the most experience. Now they get a division opponent they split the season series with, went 6 out of 13 against, 6-7 against this team. They haven't played since they got hot, though. They haven't played since they got hot. The Guardians are a team that really are. I can't figure out how this team works, right? They have a great bullpen. Emmanuel Clase, if the game gets to him in the ninth, it's over. You're not going to be able to come back, even with this hot of a Tigers team. I don't think the Astros were the best team in the AL. You can make that argument. I don't think they were. Andre says this feels like the perfect window for the Yanks to do it with their kryptonite Houston Astros out. You're right. I think they make it out of this series. With the Astros out, I think the AL is wide open now. I think any of these four teams could make a run, quite honestly. I think the Tigers, like you say, I don't think they're the best team, but they are for sure the hottest team, and that makes for a dangerous combination. Outside of Tariq Skubal, they don't have a starting pitcher that I think they can rely on. But I think the issue is both this Cleveland team and this Detroit team, they're kind of both built on this power of friendship, right? They don't have anything elite that sticks out to you outside of Emmanuel Clase for the Cleveland Guardians there. So there's nothing that I'm looking at and I'm saying, this is going to be a blowout either side. I think regardless of who wins this, it goes 5. And I think in this situation where it is that close, I think being the hotter team is what matters. So I think the Tigers win this, set up a ALCS matchup between the Yankees and the Tigers in 5. And that one, it might sound lopsided. Really anything with the Tigers in my brain kind of sounds lopsided, but that one could be interesting. Right, like I said, I think the AL is as wide open as it gets right now, especially with the Astros out. I think you could make the argument, like 1777 Memorabilia said in the YouTube chat, that the Astros were the best team. I think it was a wide open playoff to begin. I don't think there was a clear best team anyway, but it really does make it more wide open now that the team with the most experience, the one that you felt like, oh, they just find a way to get there every single time, is out. It's anybody's guess. The team that I had coming out of the AL was the Astros. So at this point, it's going to be a tight one, and I kind of want to rock with the Tigers. As much as I think the Yankees are the best team left, we've seen upset after upset after upset in these playoffs. We have not seen a divisional opponent make it out of the first round yet, or a division winner make it out of the first round yet. And that is just ridiculous. That's not a normal thing. I cannot wait to see what happens for the rest of these playoffs. But in the AL, I do have the Yankees and the Tigers coming out. And we'll break down the ALCS when we actually have it set. On the NL side of things, 2 more divisional matchups, 2 huge rivalries, starting off with the Mets and the Phillies. The Mets are finding a way to reverse the Met curse. They have found so many opportunities to pull a Mets, whether it be in that doubleheader to make the playoffs against the Braves, coming back in the ninth inning after giving up that lead when you had already come back from 3 down in the 8th beforehand with a huge bomb from Francisco Lindor. Whether that be Pete Alonso with his huge career-defining home run moment in this series against Milwaukee and what could have been his final game as a Met. The Mets have had so many opportunities to just be the Mets of old, the Mets we expect, and they have not done that. They have been the opposite of what we expect. The Mets play the Phillies in their 13-game season series. It was, again, pretty split. The Mets took 6 out of 13, so 6-7 against the Phillies overall. When I talk about pitching, and maybe that's not fair of me to take a look at. The Mets pitching has been awesome. Luis Severino has been awesome. You take a look at all of the pitchers that threw for the Mets, all of their starters, they have been awesome against that Brewers team. But that 3-headed monster in Philly right now with their pitchers, that's no joke. Like I said, I think only the Royals are a team that can compare with them when it comes to starting pitching prowess. And when it comes to the playoffs, my MO is when it's close, defer to starting pitching. And deferring to starting pitching makes it the Phillies this year. The Phillies against the Mets is going to be a fun series. I have this one going 5 as well. I think all of these are going to be tight regardless. But the Phillies, if they can find a way to get their bats back after a little bit of a break, I don't see why they can't take this one in 5. I do hear all the arguments for the Mets. I know I just spouted it about the Tigers, about being hot at the right time, being incredibly important. But with the Phillies, this just feels like their time. They don't have that boogeyman in Atlanta left, and you could say the same thing about the Yankees in the AL. They don't have the boogeyman anymore. But I do think the Phillies are a team that are real World Series contenders, and I think they win. I think they win this series in 5. And now getting to the main show. There's a reason I saved this one for last. Like 1777 memorabilia said, everyone is distracted with the Padres and Dodgers. There's a reason I saved this one for last, because I do think there's a reason everyone's distracted for this. This is a huge matchup, another division matchup, one where the Padres took 8 out of 13 in the regular season, 8-5 overall against this team. The last time they matched up in the playoffs, San Diego beat LA. Obviously, it's kind of a younger brother, older brother kind of complex there. They're trying to prove that it wasn't just a one-year thing. The Dodgers' weakness in the playoffs, as always, is starting pitching depth. And you've just heard me spout on and on and on about how important I think starting pitching is in the playoffs. It's the reason why the Dodgers haven't won more than one World Series in this stretch of utter domination that they have been through, because they don't have that starting pitching depth. Their lineups consistently, year in, year out, have been some of the best in baseball. Their pitching, on paper, has been some of the best, but it has not been able to get the job done. I am rocking with the Padres in this one. The Padres, when we talk about starting pitching, they've got a 1-2-3 punch. They've got the lineup to go through. On paper, while it's not the LA Dodgers, if you take a look at it, you could kind of go bar for bar with them. You know, you don't have those MVP stacked on MVP stacked on MVP, but you do have MVP candidate stacked on MVP candidate stacked on MVP candidate. So it's very close. And I think the momentum that the Padres have, especially with, again, that advantage in the pitching, with their bullpen, being able to go out and make those trades at the deadline, getting now 3 closers or 3 former closers in their pen, they have been awesome for them. That bullpen has been elite since the trade deadline, and it has helped them to be one of the hotter teams in baseball. Again, getting hot at the right time matters. It matters in every sport, but in no sport do I think it matters like it does in baseball. We've seen Linsanity runs happen in baseball, even in recent times. Obviously, last year, 2 teams came out of nowhere to make the World Series. The Nationals, back in 2019, they went on their Linsanity run. You know, the baseball is a very fickle sport. You have to be on it in the moment, and I think the Padres have it right now. I think they take down the Dodgers in 5. I know I know you can throw out your conspiracy theories, Larry Sports Talk, about the umpires fixing the game, but I'm going to pretend this is on an even playing field. And honestly, I don't think it's going to be fixed. I think this is going to be a great series either way, and it not going to lie to you, it sounds like you're making excuses. But still, I think this is going to be a great series. I cannot wait for the NLCS, I cannot wait for the ALCS, and I cannot wait for the baseball playoffs. This is going to be one of the best baseball playoffs, I think, or it's shaping up to be, in a very, very long time. Obviously, it has to compete with football in full swing, but still, it has my attention, and I'm going to keep you guys up to date on everything as we keep it rolling throughout the postseason. Let me know who you have. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I don't think the Dodgers win until next year. I don't think they win until Ohtani gets to pitch, and that's why I don't think they're gonna fix it. Larry Sports Talk here, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. We're gonna take a quick break here. When we come back, we are transitioning to football. It's Friday. We're doing game picks for both college football and the NFL. We're starting off in the NFL, so stick around for that. We'll be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube. Absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube.
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Friday, October 4th. If you are just tuning in, we just broke down the MLB Divisional round of the playoffs, shaping up to be one of the best yet. In this segment, we're transitioning to game picks for both college football and the NFL. We're going to start in the NFL here, predicting every single game from over the weekend, including our first game overseas in London, the New York Jets taking on the Minnesota Vikings. But before we do that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all you'd like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Friday, October 4th. But like I was saying, we are going to get into some NFL game picks here. Starting off with that aforementioned London game. As Andre says, Garrett Wilson's kind of due. This is going to be a big game. The Jets come in limping. This is a game they need really, really badly. Minnesota coming in off a hot stretch. Sam Darnold put himself in MVP conversations. I think that's kind of ridiculous. I think that conversation should go to Justin Jefferson, but still, it's incredibly impressive what the Vikings have been doing. They're 2.5-point favorites in this one in London, and I kept going back and forth in this one. There's no real home field advantage in this one, even though Minnesota is the home team. There's no real home field advantage here. Minnesota is a team coming off of a huge victory, a huge division victory against Green Bay. They don't need it as much as the Jets do. That being said, this Jets team has been so bipolar. They've been so on and off. One week, you get a huge win against the Patriots. The next week, they throw up a dud against the Broncos. Can't even get over 9 points. This is a huge game for them. I want to lean Jets. In my heart of hearts, I want to pick the Jets. But the way the Minnesota Vikings have been playing has been arguably the best in football. You take a look at some power rankings. I had them third in my power rankings, but some people have them one. And I wouldn't blame them for having one because the Vikings have looked near unstoppable. That combination of offensive coaching from Kevin O'Connell and defensive coaching from Brian Flores is one of the best coaching staffs in the league, and that is a huge part of this. This Vikings team is going to be ready. I think this is a great game to kick off the slate in Europe. I think the Minnesota Vikings take this one, 24-21. Heading back to the U.S., 1 o'clock games here. The Baltimore Ravens coming off an absolute shellacking of those Buffalo Bills, favored by 2.5 points at division rival Cincinnati. The Cincinnati Bengals offense, it's been great, has been phenomenal. Very few teams have been able to stop them. Their defense, on the other hand, that's been a different story entirely. The Cincinnati Bengals defense has been one of the worst defenses in all of football. They've been able to get run up and down on, and they've given up 100 yards on the ground in both games, 2 straight games, to Brian Robinson Jr. and to Chuba Hubbard. Now they have to face a whole different animal in Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson, we saw what they could do against a good defense. Granted, a defense that is much better built to stop the pass than the run, but a good defense in the Buffalo Bills. Derrick Henry torched them for 199 yards, nearly 200, and 2 touchdowns, nearly 3 touchdowns. Lamar Jackson added a rushing touchdown for good measure on top of that. This is a game that I think Baltimore should dominate offensively. I think Cincinnati's offense is good enough to keep up, but that defense is not going to be able to get the stops when they need. I think Baltimore takes this one in Cincinnati 33-27. Then we get to the real bipolar team. I know I kind of called the Jets bipolar, but Indianapolis traveling to Jacksonville. Jacksonville, the lone remaining winless team in the NFL. Indianapolis has not won a game in Jacksonville in almost 15 years. It's been a very long time since they won a game in Jacksonville. Unclear if Anthony Richardson is starting, but that's what makes this team so bipolar. Joe Flacco comes in. He did a great job. He did a solid job. This Colts defense, you'll have your good Colts days, you'll have your bad Colts days. On a good Colts day, they can beat just about anyone. On a bad Colts day, this is a game, and Jacksonville is favored. And like I said, history is not on the Colts' side. I think this one's going to be very close. And I think the Colts team, coming off of a big win against the previously undefeated Pittsburgh Steelers, I don't think they're going to be able to travel down to Jacksonville and keep that same energy. Again, it has been nearly 15 years since they won a game in Jacksonville, and maybe you say that they're due. Maybe you say that. But I just don't see it this year. This isn't a Colts team that has proven to me that they're the one that are going to break those curses, the seeming curses that has rocked this franchise for a really long time, eliminated them from the playoffs at times. I think Jacksonville wins this game 23-24. Another divisional matchup between two pretty bad teams here. The Miami Dolphins with Snoop Huntley, who, quick side tangent here, I think Snoop Huntley did a really good job with that offense. On short notice, I know he didn't look great, overthrew a couple balls, underthrew a couple balls, but I think he did a solid job with that Miami team. They looked awful against Tennessee, though. It's a good Tennessee defense. Now they travel to New England, another good New England defense. I think they get some redemption here. New England is not a team offensively, even with the Dolphins losing Jalen Phillips for the year yet again, which is devastating for them. He's one of their best pass rushers. They still have Bradley Chubb, but having him on the other side was the reason they felt comfortable letting Christian Wilkins go, letting him walk in free agency. That defense takes a big step back. I do think Miami gets the job done here. I think they win 26-20. Even with the offensive problems they've had, this New England team doesn't scream to me that they're going to be able to pull off what Mason Rudolph and the Titans were able to do, which maybe doesn't sound the greatest for the Patriots, but still, I think this Miami Dolphins team with Snoop Huntley at the helm and another week of full practice with him as the quarterback is going to be much improved. And maybe that's wishful thinking for me, but I do think that the Dolphins get this win 26-20. Then we get a surprise game. Surprise good game, I think, as the Cleveland Browns travel to the nation's capital to take on the Washington Commanders. Washington favored by 3. We've seen Jaden Daniels now 2 straight incredible games from him. 2 straight near-perfect games from Jaden Daniels. They've only punted 1 time since week 1. That is a ridiculous stat right there. Granted, they have played the Giants defense. They have played the Bengals defense, and they have played the Cardinals defense. I want to believe in Jaden Daniels. I really do. I really do want to believe in Jaden Daniels. But I need to see it against a real defense. And honestly, I just need to see it against a defense with a pulse. And I think this Cleveland Browns defense counts as a defense with a pulse. I think the Commanders win this game. And if Jaden Daniels is for real, he's going to show it this week. Maybe I'm a little slow to hop on the Jaden Daniels hype train, but I've been burned by stuff like this before, and I want to see it against a real team, quote unquote, a real defense, I should say, before I fall head and shoulders into that Jaden Daniels hype train. I think Washington wins pretty comfortably, though. That Cleveland defense hasn't been great, and Deshaun Watson is at the helm, and those two things don't combine for great football. For winning football. Washington wins 31-21. Buffalo travels to Houston in possibly the game of the week. Obviously, big storyline coming into this one. Stephon Diggs' revenge game. Stephon Diggs forces himself out of yet another team. He joins this Houston team. Seems like he's having a good time down there. This is a Houston team that's dealing with some injuries at the running back position. And as we've seen in the weeks that teams have gotten offense against this Buffalo defense, it's the running game that's really been the most effective part. Against the Cardinals week 1, we saw James Conner do his thing. Obviously, last week, we saw Derrick Henry do his thing. Joe Mixon doesn't seem like he's going to play in this game, and that is a little bit concerning to me. It's a little bit concerning because this is a Texans team that has struggled a little bit offensively without Joe Mixon, without that consistent run attack. Cam Akers has been fine. Dare Ogunbowale has been fine, but they need that potent running attack to really reach their ceiling, and they don't have that right now. And Buffalo, their Achilles heel is a potent running attack. Texans don't have that right now. Because of that, I think Buffalo and Josh Allen bounce back in a big way, get a big win on the road, 27-24. Carolina traveling to Chicago in a battle of what was supposed to be the 2 number 1 overall picks back-to-back. Now we get Andy Dalton facing one of his former teams. 2 weeks in a row that he's done that. Caleb Williams has been improving every single week, and that is very encouraging to see. Caleb Williams is a guy that came into the league with so much hype. Week 1 fell flat on his face. The offense literally could not get anything going, relied on the defense. We've seen Caleb Williams make throw week after week after week that shows he is improving. It's very impressive to see. I think the Bears continue on that train against a bad Carolina defense. Maybe this is the one where we see Caleb Williams really click finally. Chicago favored by 4, wins 27-20. Then we get an ugly game. A real ugly game, one might say. The Las Vegas Raiders. The Las Vegas Raiders minus 1 Davante Adams. Davante Adams, who we talked about on Wednesday, forcing his way out. I think there's a couple of places he will go. Jets, Cowboys, Chiefs, Saints. Those are my top 4 there. Not on the team anymore. The Denver Broncos, defense especially, has played incredible recently. 2 straight wins against 2 pretty good teams in the Bucs and the Jets, I think. That defense has been awesome. I don't think that defensive train stops now against a bad Las Vegas offense, especially if Pat Surtain can lock up their number 1 receiver, which isn't even going to be Davante Adams anymore. That is a huge, huge get for that Broncos team, and I think Denver takes this one 14-16. Ugly game, but a win's a win, and that's how the Broncos are going to have to win games this year. Arizona, another division matchup, traveling to San Francisco. San Fran favored by 7.5. We finally saw Brandon Ayuk get a little involved. That team is getting healthier. Obviously, they don't have Christian McCaffrey. He's going to be out for a while. Not sure if he's even going to play this season, which sucks for McCaffrey fantasy managers, but Jordan Mason has done a very good job filling in, and not much to worry about there. The offense looks a lot different, but still, it's working. George Kittle making great plays, Debo making a couple of good plays, Jordan Mason again in the run game that they love to rely on. This is still a very, very good 49ers team. This is a very, very bad Arizona Cardinals defense, and I think Brock Purdy is going to carve them up. I think they win pretty comfortably. Still an Arizona offense you need to be careful of. They haven't been as good as expected, but it's still a good Arizona offense. So you can't just relax on this one because they could upset you. We've seen them do that against good defenses earlier in this season. Again, I don't think it's going to be enough, though. San Fran wins it comfortably 35-20. Then we have Green Bay, 3-point favorite, traveling to LA to take on the Rams. Jordan Love is back, looking for his first win of the season against a battered, beaten, and bruised LA Rams team. The LA Rams at home, even though Matt Stafford is very good, I don't think it's going to be enough against a solid Green Bay team. They just went toe-to-toe, and then in that second half, they dominated. If their kicker had made a couple of kicks, they would have won that game. Now, obviously, Minnesota plays this game a little bit differently if the Packers make those kicks, so you can't just say that. But still, Green Bay, I think, wins this one 31-27. 28-24. Then we have a blowout. I'm not even going to try and sugarcoat this one. The New York Giants without Malik Neighbors travel to Seattle and take on Geno Smith and the Seahawks. It's just not going to be close. The Giants don't have any offense outside of Malik Neighbors. They don't even have Devin Singletary, who's been kind of that secondary option. Wan'Dale Robinson will be there, so maybe he'll catch 20 balls. Maybe he'll get 50 yards. Maybe. We'll see. He's been very much the underneath guy. Daniel Jones can't push the ball downfield. They're not going to have that running game going. This is not going to be a fun game to watch for anyone. The Seahawks win 28-10. And then Sunday Night Football, as we have the Dallas Cowboys minus two of their best defensive players, their two best defensive line players, taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers in Pittsburgh. Justin Fields looking to bounce back after he had a good game, but the defense was unable to stop the Colts that much, especially in the first half. I think this is a game where the Pittsburgh defense feasts. Maybe there's one where CeeDee Lamb gets away, but this is, I've been saying it all year, a one-dimensional Cowboys team. Paper-thin one dimension, too. You have CeeDee Lamb. That's it. Their defense has not been that good, and they're missing their two best players. Maybe this turns into a blowout even. I'm not going to go that far because I still don't really believe in this Pittsburgh Steelers offense, but they did crack that 20-point margin last week. Maybe they can do it again this week. I'm going 17-20. The Pittsburgh Steelers win this one. And Monday Night Football, we'll do a bigger breakdown on Monday itself, but I have the Chiefs winning 23-20. Again, bigger breakdown on Monday, but that's my score prediction for now. But anyway, let me know what you have in week 5 of the NFL. Which picks I'm way off on. Which ones you think I need to change. Love to hear your thoughts. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we're taking a look at college football. There are 14 games that I've picked out on this not super exciting slate, but there are still some upset possibilities around here, and we're going to talk about some of the ones that I picked out. So stick around for that. We'll be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Friday, October 4th. If you are just tuning in, we just finished going over the NFL slate for this weekend. Picked all the games here. Today, in this segment, we're going to do the same thing for college football. Obviously, not all of them, but the 14 biggest games from tonight and this weekend that I picked out. But before we do that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Leave a tip or donation with a message in it, or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message pops up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go and throw that in the comments, throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Friday, October 4th. But like I was saying, finishing off our show today, talking all about college football. Week 6 is upon us already, nearly halfway through the college football season. Kind of insane to think at. We have two number 25 teams this week. Interesting thing, doesn't happen all that often. We're going to start off with one of those as Syracuse travels to Las Vegas to take on UNLV, one of the top group of 5 contenders this year. New quarterback for UNLV comes in, dominates after taking over from Matthew Sluka. Syracuse, a team that burst onto the scene last year. Very, very good Syracuse team. This should be a very good game. UNLV favored by 6.5 points. This is going to be a crapshoot, but I am leaning towards the side of UNLV in this one. What they showed me last week with new quarterback, their ability to still run the ball while also being able to throw it, which they hadn't shown all season long, about a 50% completion percentage from Matthew Sluka. Syracuse's defense is solid. They lost a game that they probably should have won to Stanford earlier this year, and UNLV much better than Stanford. This is going to be a good game, though. Best game on tonight. I have UNLV winning 31-28. Turning our attention to Saturday's slate, probably the best game, in my opinion, takes place between two unranked teams in the Big Ten. As Rutgers travels to Nebraska to take on those Cornhuskers, the undefeated Rutgers Scarlet Knights traveling to Nebraska, 6.5-point favorites are the home team. Again, this is going to be a good team. It's going to be a classic battle of offense versus defense. Can the Rutgers defense shut down Dylan Raiola enough for their offense, which has been fine, not great, but fine, to win them a game? I don't think it's quite going to be enough. I think it's going to be a very close game. But still, I think Nebraska is going to pull off a huge win, keep their season alive. This doesn't eliminate Rutgers, but it definitely does put a damper on things. If they win, I think they're in the top 25 next week, as Nebraska wins 28-23. Then we get our first and only ranked versus ranked matchup of the week, as number 9 Missouri travels to the other number 25, Texas A&M. A&M is a 2.5-point favorite. I don't like this A&M team. Straight up, I don't like this A&M team. I don't think they have the offensive juice. The defense is good, but it's not the elite defense that we were expecting earlier on this season. They almost lose a game to Arkansas last week. Missouri should handle them, but Missouri's played a lot of close games against not great competition, so maybe this one turns into a good game. I still think Missouri's a better team than A&M. Like I said, I don't like this A&M team at all. I think Missouri wins 33-25. SMU traveling to number 22, Louisville. Louisville 6.5-point favorites in this one. Louisville coming off of a brutal loss to Notre Dame, one that really could have skyrocketed their chances in a college football playoff scenario. I like this Louisville team a lot. Their defense needs some work, and SMU has been on the rise. I think this truly is an upset alert kind of game. I think it could go either way. SMU showing a lot of strides in its first year in the ACC. Massive matchup for both of these teams. I think Louisville is just a better team offensively, and I think that's going to be the difference. Louisville wins a close one, 28-31. Then we're going to get an ugly game as Boston College travels to Virginia to take on the Cavaliers. Virginia favored by 1 in a pick'em here. Boston College, I've been impressed by what they've been able to do on the ground. Virginia, not a team that I'm seeing any really great stuff out of their offense or defense. They were able to shut down a good Coastal Carolina offense, a good group of 5 offense, but this isn't a Virginia team that I can believe in. I like Boston College just that little much more. I think Boston College gets the big road victory, 22-21. Then we get a Pitt team, undefeated Pitt team, favored by 2.5, traveling to a reeling North Carolina, losing big to JMU 2 weeks ago, a 20-point comeback victory on their heads as Duke comes back to keep their season undefeated. Last week, this is a must-win for North Carolina if they want any kind of respect this season. Pitt has been a team that's had a lot of comebacks, a lot of close games, and I think this game is going to be very close. I think at home, North Carolina is going to be able to pull this one out. They need this one, and when I say I need this one, they might need this win more than any other team in the country needs a win this week. I think that's going to It's going to push North Carolina just that much over the top. They win 28-27. Iowa takes on Ohio State, the number 3 ranked team in the nation. Ohio State's first real test. Iowa isn't the biggest test. Their offense is fine, better than it has been in past years. Their defense isn't as good as it's been in past years. I think this Ohio State team is in a position to do something special this year. I think they dominate in this one, but it's the first real chance we see to see Ohio State all season long. They've played a bunch of cupcakes. You could say Michigan State was fine, but I don't really think Michigan State amounts to much. Again, I need to see it one more time. I think they'll do it. I think they win 41-17. And then one that I think could really be an upset. I'm not bold enough to pick it, but Ole Miss travels to South Carolina. A little bit of beamer ball here for you. Ole Miss favored by 8.5. Anything can happen down there in South Carolina. You enter that stadium, it's just a whole nother dimension of crazy for you. I think we saw it almost happen to LSU, and I think LSU is on par with this Ole Miss team. LSU escaped with a victory, and I think this game is going to go very much the same way. Ole Miss needs a win in the worst way after getting punched in the mouth at Kentucky. I need to see some grit out of this team, and they're going to need to show some grit to win this one. I think they do it, but it's not going to be pretty. 36-33, Ole Miss. We have Virginia Tech traveling to Stanford, favored by 8 points in this one. Virginia Tech coming off of a brutal loss. 2 straight brutal losses, really, to Rutgers and then to Miami. They showed me a lot against Miami, though. That's the kind of Virginia Tech team that was expected early in the season, when we were in the preseason, before they lost a couple of non-conference games. In conference, this is a dangerous team. They've always been good in conference. Virginia Tech, I think, wins this one 27-21. And we have West Virginia traveling to formerly ranked Oklahoma State. West Virginia and Oklahoma State, both 2 really good teams. Oklahoma State's offense has been very inconsistent, but West Virginia's defense has been nowhere near as good as you need it to be to take on an offense that could explode at any time in Oklahoma State. West Virginia's offense is good enough to keep pace for a little bit, but I don't think it's going to be good enough in the long term. Oklahoma State wins 35-28. Then we get what was supposed to be maybe game of the week here, as number 15 Clemson travels to Florida State, but Florida State's been abysmal. Florida State's been awful. Maybe we get a rare chance, an off chance, that Florida State clicks this week and finally puts it all together, but I'm willing to bet a lot of money that is not going to happen this week. Clemson destroys Florida State 40-20. Tennessee, number 4 in the nation, travels to Arkansas. Arkansas, again, kind of like South Carolina, loves to keep it crazy. That game is going to be a mess. I think Tennessee is going to be a little more immune to Arkansas's crazy than some of these other SEC and Big 12 teams that Arkansas has taken on recently. This is a big game for Arkansas, though. If they can get this win, I think it saves their coach's job. I think Tennessee still wins this one in a slightly closer game than a lot of people think. Tennessee 31, Arkansas 20. Then we get a game that I'm puzzled by, honestly. I don't know how Washington is favored against Michigan in this one. Michigan, well, I don't think they're the 10th best team in the nation. I definitely don't think they're that good. Traveling to Washington, I know kind of cross-country there, but Washington has lost a bunch of games in a row, including one to Rutgers, and I don't think Rutgers is a team that would be favored against Michigan at any point. I think this is kind of national championship hype here. Michigan should win this game. It just depends on if, their run game can continue to do what they've been able to do the last couple weeks, and I don't see why that would change. Rutgers ran all over them. Michigan wins 24-20. And finally, the game day game. Number 8 Miami, a team that almost loses to Virginia Tech on a near Hail Mary, travels to Cal to take on the Cal Bears. This is going to be a good game. Cal's a good team. They're a fun environment. Miami has to travel cross country. That's going to be the biggest factor. Can Miami stay playing mistake-free? Can Cam Ward continue to play mistake-free football after traveling cross country? And that's going to be the big question to ask. I think this Miami team is good enough to do it. I don't think this Cal team is anything particularly special, but they won a couple of games, so they do deserve a little bit of respect here in their first season in the Big Ten. Miami gets the victory, 31-20. But let me know if there's any games that I missed, any games you think I should cover. I'd love to hear your thoughts on any of them, any of the games we went over as well. But thank you, everybody, so much for tuning in to today's episode of Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I have been your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Hope everybody enjoys their weekend. We'll be back on Monday to break down some MLB playoffs, to break down some football from over the weekend, and everything else that happens is in what I'm sure is to be a jam-packed weekend of sports. So tune in Monday for all of that and more, and I will see you then. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Let's go. I feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Tired of shit and the coffee ain't hit yet. Damn it.